Thank you. So welcome everybody. I'm Patrick Hollister with Partnership for Health. With me is Jill Chamberlain of Blue Cross Blue Shield Center for Prevention. And this is the third in our series of 3 public input meetings regarding the Pelican Rapids Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. I should say this is the third in the series of 3 meetings in September. We're still going to have one more round of 3 public input meetings in November. Jill is our tech master for the for this Zoom meeting, so she has brought up the presentation. Thank you. So this project is taking place during calendar year 2020 with a generous sponsorship from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota Center for Prevention. Next slide. So at the beginning of the year 2020, we formed a committee. This is the Pelican Rapids Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan Committee. This was our first and only in-person meeting in February of 2020. We met right before COVID-19 hit Minnesota. So next slide, please. So Kate Martinez, who is the chair of the Pelican Rapids Park Board and also the art teacher for Pelican Rapids Schools, joined our meeting last night. We had meeting number 2 last night at 5 p.m. She did a terrific job. Unfortunately, she wasn't available this morning, so I told her I would cover her material. So next slide. What Kate talked about primarily was the new trailhead in Pelican Rapids, which has the address of 108 Midway Avenue. So if you go to the next slide. So Kate provided me this map with 3 parcels. Kate drew these polygons on top of an aerial photo, and I should point out that these polygons don't necessarily correspond exactly to the lot lines. It's just to sort of illustrate where these 3 parcels are. The City Council officially designated these 3 properties as the trailhead for Pelican Rapids about maybe 6 weeks ago. And the 2 of these 3 parcels are connected by a bridge, which I think is in the next slide. Yep. There's the bridge. It's mostly a pedestrian bridge. I think some people do bike across it, and also I understand that snowmobiles are allowed to use this bridge in the winter. But this bridge connects. If you go back 1 slide, Jill, this bridge connects the leftmost parcel with the center parcel. Yep. So next slide, please. We had a discussion last night about amenities that can or should be part of the trailhead. This is a one of those 24-hour free bike maintenance stations that Partnership for Health funded for the city of Breckenridge. You can see the Breckenridge water tower in the background. I would encourage everybody on this Zoom call to go visit Breckenridge and check out the maintenance station. It's in Veterans Park, and it's adjacent to the new trail that connects downtown Breckenridge with St. Francis Hospital. So it's pretty cool. And in fact, Kate has just submitted an application for funding to Partnership for Health to fund one of these for the Pelican Rapids Trailhead. So that'll be cool. Next slide. Some of you probably recognize this. This is the interactive play sculpture at the Central Lakes Trail trailhead in Fergus Falls. Kate took this picture a couple months ago. She visited the trailhead with her husband and kid, and they loved it. They loved the trailhead, but they also specifically loved this play sculpture. They would like to do something similar to this, not copy this, but I mean some cool artistic and perhaps interactive centerpiece at the Pelican Rapids trailhead. And so Kate contacted me and got information about how this was funded and who the artist was, et cetera, et cetera. So Kate's interested in doing something along these lines in Pelican Rapids. Next slide, please. Another thing that Kate thought was cool and might want to put in the Pelican Rapids trailhead are, I mean, certainly we want some kind of bike racks in the trailhead, but these are artistic bike racks that Naomi created and Wayne helped organize. And this photo happens to be at the at the Fergus Falls Library, but we've got these monarch butterfly and prairie grass bike racks. The one in the background there is prairie grass. We've got those in various locations around Fergus Falls, and they're pretty cool. So artistic bike racks are another possibility. So then this is a photo of some other potential amenities that could be part of the trailhead. So the upper right photo is actually in Pelican Rapids. That's in either Sharon Park or Peterson Park. I think Peterson Park. And it's a, you know, typical picnic shelter. Very nice, right on the river there. The bottom left photo are some other amenities. This is also a photo taken in Pelican Rapids. You've got sort of 3 or 4 things of interest in the bottom left photo. One is you've got one of these little free libraries where if you've got an extra book, you can donate it. If you want a book, you can take it. Those are quite popular. There's also a bunch of those around Fergus Falls. And then to the right of that is a dog, how can I say this euphemistically, a dog sanitation station. And to the right of that is a garbage can. And then in the background there is restrooms. So these are other amenities that could go in the trailhead. Then upper left, this is not in Pelican Rapids. In fact, I'm not even sure where this is. I got this photo online, but this is a drinking fountain for adults, kids, and pets. And notice how all 3 drinking fountains are in use in the photo. That's pretty cool. And then the bottom right is exercise equipment, outdoor exercise equipment, which has also become popular in parks or trailheads or places like that. So next slide. So we have the first of several poll questions for this meeting. And Jill will administer the poll question.
All right, so question, and it's going to show up here, and you get to choose one response. If I had $100 to help with the trailhead, I would spend it on, and these are your choices. One assumption is bathrooms will be covered. So we don't, since that's kind of a need for everybody, it's off the table. So play equipment for children, drinking fountain or water station, concession stand, bike racks, bike maintenance station, stationary exercise equipment, car parking lot, or other. And if you mark other, please put an idea in the chat box. All right. It'll tell me how many people have voted. Patrick and I do not vote. And so I am going to close the poll, looks like. All right, are we ready? And here are the results. So half chose bike maintenance station, and then play equipment for children was second, with drinking fountain and water station third. Thank you.
Yeah, terrific, thank you. So I'm going to cover a little bit more of Kate's material here. She would obviously do a much better job than I'm doing, but I'm the best you get this morning. So Kate informed me that the park board is also working on a brand new park plan, and by the way, Kate is going to be talking about this and the swimming pool and some other subjects at the Pelican Rapids City Council meeting this coming Tuesday at 5 p.m. If you want to hear Kate speak to the City Council about this, nowadays, because of COVID-19, the Pelican Rapids City Council meetings are on Zoom. And so you can join the meeting by Zoom shortly before the meeting, like I would say around 4:30. You should go to the Pelican Rapids City website, and you will see the Zoom link right on the front page of the website. And you can click on that and join the meeting by Zoom 5 p.m. this coming Tuesday. But Kate tells me that part of the concept that she wants to incorporate into the new Pelican Rapids Park plan is connecting these 5 parcels. So on the left here, you've got the 3 parcels that are now officially part of the trailhead, as we already discussed. The 2 parcels on the right here are starting from the right, Sharon Park and then Peterson Park. And part of the concept that Kate's interested in pursuing is improving the connections between all 5 of these parcels for bikes and pedestrians. You've already got a really nice, very ornate bridge across the river between Peterson Park and Sharon Park. But the 2 kind of challenges are, how do we more easily get bikes and pedestrians across Broadway? And then how do we get them across First Street Northwest more easily? And I think that brings us to talking about the bridge, I believe, if you go to the next slide. Yeah. So there's some interesting things happening with the bridge here, or potentially happening with the bridge. So I think all of you on this call know that MnDOT District 4 is going to reconstruct 59 and 108 within Pelican Rapids city limits in 2024. Now, this bridge is part of Highway 59, and it goes over the river. And MnDOT District 4 already brought up their bridge experts from St. Paul to take a look at the bridge, and they have determined that the bridge is structurally sound. It does not need to be replaced, so it won't be replaced in 2024. However, the bridge will be redecked, by which they mean the driving surface on the bridge is going to get removed and replaced, as is 59, both north and south of the bridge. MnDOT plans to leave the railing of the bridge in place unless the city is interested in a different style of railing. And if they are interested in that, the city would have to pay for that. And the mayor joined our meeting last evening, and the mayor told us that the last he had heard from District 4 about what it would cost to replace the railing was about $300 per foot. So that's the cost is significant. But if the city wants something more ornate, decorative, aesthetic, artistic, historic, whatever, then the standard MnDOT railing, 2024 is the city's chance to do that if they're willing to pay for it. The other thing is that Kate also mentioned that as part of the quest for making 59 easier and safer for bikes and pedestrians to cross, they're even looking at the possibility of running some sort of a multi-use path under the bridge itself. Now, I don't know if there's currently room for that, but Kate told me that probably most of you on this call know that the dam is also going to get decommissioned and removed. I don't know the exact timing of when that's going to happen, but Kate said she's heard various stories about what happens to the water level when the dam gets removed. Some people are telling her the water level will be lower, and some people are telling her the water level will be higher. And so we don't really know yet, but that has implications for whether there would actually be room under the bridge to run a bike and pedestrian trail. And then if you go to the next slide, here's the bridge from the other side. We had a gentleman last week on the call, Greg from District 4, who had an interesting idea, which was, you see the building on the left there? He said, well, what if you just run the bike and pedestrian trail through the lower level of the building? And that's also an interesting idea. I don't know who owns that building, but whoever owns the building might have an opinion about that. But that was just another kind of interesting idea. So if you go to the next slide, this is what that railing looks like from the standpoint of a pedestrian walking on the bridge. So again, MnDOT in 2024, even as they redeck the bridge, their intent is to leave this railing here unless the city wants something more attractive. If the city wants something more attractive, the city would need to pay for it. So next slide. So we do have a poll question related to the bridge and sort of the aesthetics of the bridge, and Jill will send out that poll question.
All right, here we go. And again, there's only one response. And the question is, I would support a customized bridge deck. I would be willing to support city dollars being spent on the bridge deck, contribute to a community fund for the bridge deck, help organize a community fund for the bridge deck, or I do not support a customized bridge deck.
And by customized bridge deck, we mean the railing, but potentially we also mean, I mean, a customized bridge deck could even mean something fancy on the sidewalk, like pseudo pavers or what have you.
All right. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll. And it's a tie between, there is support to use city dollars. There would also be support or people willing to contribute to a fund, and one person offered to help organize.
Cool, thank you. If you could close the poll too, or no, I guess I need to do that maybe, I don't know. Okay, I closed my poll, so I'm good. All right, so now we have a guest speaker. Well, we have two guest speakers. We have Wayne and Naomi. Naomi is on the right here in this photo, making one of the bike racks. So take it away, Wayne and Naomi.
Thanks, Patrick. I think I know most of the folks on the call, but if you don't know me, my name's Wayne Hurley. I'm the Director of Planning for West Central Initiative. Just wanted to talk very briefly about Safe Routes to School and give you just a brief overview of what Safe Routes to School is. And the reason that we wanted to talk about Safe Routes to School is because West Central Initiative is working with Naomi on a project related to Safe Routes to School, and there may be an opportunity to do a demonstration project in Pelican Rapids as a part of this. And so just very briefly, Safe Routes to School, the goal of Safe Routes to School is really to make it safe for kids to walk and bike to school. And where it isn't safe, we want to make it safe. And where it is safe, we want to try to figure out ways to encourage kids to walk and bike to school. So there's a number of reasons why we're doing this work. There's a lot fewer kids that walk and bike to school today, as you can see on the slide. There's a lot of unintended consequences related to that. There's health impacts and traffic impacts, climate impacts. Some of those things, you know, we look at, there's an obesity epidemic right now amongst children. You know, they're getting far less exercise than the daily minimum recommended amounts. There's, you know, obviously I don't have to tell anybody in Pelican Rapids, you see it all the time. Traffic in front of the high school and the elementary school parking lot. You know, it just gets very congested in those areas in every community in the region, and that's true. Climate, you know, we don't think about climate issues necessarily being in rural Minnesota, but when you've got that many cars, and this could, I don't know where this photo is taken, I guess, but that could very easily be the front of Viking Elementary School. But when you've got that many cars idling in that small of a space with young children around, and you know, there's a lot more incidents of asthma, things like that. the air quality. It just makes it very difficult for kids when they're in that environment on a repeated basis. So safe routes can be part of the problem, and the way that we get into safe routes is through what we call the E's. There used to be 5 E's that we focused on, and we've added in a few more since then, one of those being equity. And we try to address equity and make sure that we have facilities that work well for everybody in the community. So equity is different than equality, where everybody is given the same resource. But equity, it's based on what resources are available and distributed for folks to make sure that they're successful and they get what they need. So the other E's that we look at are education, engagement, encouragement, enforcement, engineering, and evaluation. And there's a lot of different factors that go into all of those. Right now, Pelican Rapids, some of you may be familiar, a sidewalk, Safe Routes to School sidewalk plan, that would fall under the engineering E. But when we do Safe Routes plans, as a West Central initiative, we focus on a comprehensive now 7E plan, and it would include all of these factors that you see on the slide. So if there's interest, and this is separate from the project Naomi is working on, but if there's interest, and Don and I have talked about this before, if there's interest in the city doing a Safe Routes School plan with West Central Initiative, that solicitation is going to be opening up very soon, probably next month. And so I'll be sure to share that information with Don and others in the community so that you can make a decision as to whether or not you want to engage in a Safe Routes plan. In the meantime, we've got this other project going on, and I'm going to turn it over to Naomi and let her talk about that, because it's really cool, and hopefully we can figure out a way to make it work in Pelican Rapids.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Naomi Ramona Schliessman. I am the local artist that is based in Fergus Falls, Minnesota. I was born and raised here in Fergus Falls, and I got my MFA from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I've been trained in welding, woodworking, also mold making, and I work in mixed media. And I'm largely an installation artist as most of my trade and my practice. And over the past 7 years now, I've been getting more into public art. And as you can see some from the images that Patrick shared earlier, with the play sculpture at the Central Lakes Head Trail here in Fergus Falls, myself and Michelle Anderson were the facilitators that went into the Prairie Wetlands School to work with the 4th and 5th graders to actually come up and with designs and ideas as to what they would love to see there. So we were getting the community involved with that right away. And that was a program through Springboard for the Arts that we did this. And then also with the bike racks that Patrick shared as well, that was in collaboration with Pedal Fergus Falls and also with the city of Fergus Falls, where Wayne Hurley had this wonderful idea about actually having functional artistic bike racks that could be downtown Fergus Falls at local businesses and even art galleries, the theater, and even our local historical Otter Tail County Museum, as well as destination points. The reason why that we came up with those designs specifically that I'd like to talk about is that we thought about the region and what we live in, and that Carl Zachman and I, who's my collaborating partner, with our bike racks, which is a small business that I have with Carl Zachman. That is where we designed the butterfly and the prairie grass, because it is speaking to the region and what we live in. And so those two are sculptural bike racks that also add a pop of color and are whimsical little sculptures, but are also functional bike sculptures as well. And I wanted to share this piece here just to talk a little bit about what is some of my recent work, especially with COVID. And that's where I've been really looking into how to create things that people can interact with. And so this is a convex mirror that the viewer can actually walk up to, take a selfie with it. And the people are always wearing a mask when doing this because it's in a gallery viewing. This piece is made out of earplugs and also nails, and then also caulking to adhere this to the mirror itself. So this is just one example of how I use different mediums and actually think about material to be creating my work And next slide, please, Jill. So the project that Wayne is talking about is that I'm honored to be selected as one of the 5 artists from Smart Growth America and Transportation Rapid Response Initiative, which is also collaborating with Forecast Public Artworks out of St. Paul. Smart Growth America is out of Washington, DC, and they actually chose the cohort of us 5 artists, where Tasha Stigma is from San Francisco, Jonathan Brumfield is from Oakland, and then Ashley Doherty is from Las Vegas, and then Nubuzi Oki is from Detroit, Michigan, and then we are the only rural community that was awarded this grant, which is fantastic, that I am working in collaboration with West Central Initiative, because West Central Initiative serves 9 counties. So we're one of the groups as well that is working with multiple towns and regions and not just one location. This is funded by the Craig's D Foundation and the National Endowments for the Arts. Next slide, please, Jill. So when thinking about this and what we were going to be doing, I am working with West Central Initiative, where I'm creating a reusable community engagement kit, which is consisting both of virtual and also physical tools that will be used with social distancing. Sometimes will be required, of course. And also with the help of this kit, West Central Initiative staff will be able to reach a more diverse range of stakeholders to better inform their transportation planning, and also do this across the 9 counties again, which is really important. So some data that I wanted to share with everyone this morning is that from the American for the Arts have actually done this study where it is 60% of Americans see the benefits of arts and health and how that can really help improve within their communities. And then also 71% agree that the arts improve the actual image and identity of their communities. And again, that's where I was talking about the West Central Trailhead, since you've seen those images, also the sculptural bike racks. It's putting actual artwork and artists into these projects and programs to actually have the community involved with it, and other organizations as well. Some other things that you can be thinking about too, to have, especially thinking about the bridge deck, is even having poetry on the sidewalk, having an artist create some poems, or even having kids create some poems. And so just having you think about how the arts can really identify and actually be a part of your community. And not only that, it also has an economical impact too, because when people go downtown or people go to these locations, they're going to stop at a store, get something to eat or drink. They might shop as well, or pick up things that they need as they're visiting these locations. Next slide, please, Jill. Excuse me, my allergies are horrible this morning. When Wayne was talking about the ease, the one thing that I wanted to do was actually do some research myself. So I was very fortunate enough to actually go over to Amsterdam to go and study and look at artwork. And of course, over there, everyone walks, bikes, very little motor vehicles within the communities. And so this Danish study from treehugger.com did a study of kids from the ages of 5 to 19, where they had 20,000 Danish kids that they were studying. And these kids either biked or walked to school. And from this, they found that they were able to actually have better concentration once getting to school and having to sit in their desk, and were able to concentrate for a much longer period of typically about 4 hours of being able to sit down and really listen and be able to do something like solving puzzles. I myself, who have a 4-year-old, I have seen this too, where if she actually is more active in the morning, she listens better. She actually wants to do more of her puzzles, building blocks. And so I can see how this is important with us. And this was a mass experiment that they did. And it's a great way to really see how other communities are actually thinking about walking, biking, even scootering or skateboarding here in America, what our kids love to do. Next slide, please. One of the things though that could be a limitation is actually if you live in the rural, which I grew up on a farm for most of my time as to growing up in elementary and middle school. And walking and biking to school wasn't an option. It wasn't practical. So this is one thing that I've been thinking about with West Central Initiative, with visiting some local schools, is that maybe there are some activities that can be implemented before school or even after school, of having the parents bring in the bicycle or scooter, or even just creating these walking paths, which I'll be talking about more later here on the presentation. And one thing with the kids walking or biking to school too, it's also a health benefit that Wayne was talking about as well, with obesity and even just getting fresh air and having that experience out in nature. Next slide, please. So first and foremost, we had to come up with a logo for this, and to come up with an idea that would speak to biking, skateboarding, unicycles, wheelchairs, walkers, rollerblades, and even wagons, because I even think about ways as to how even having a walking school bus where you could have bringing your littles with you who maybe aren't in school yet, of showing them what you're doing and creating a routine already with the younger ones as you're taking your elder children to school. And so I came up with this design of just the wheel and then the bicycle flag. And then Jill Amundsen and I collaborated together to come up with the saying, "Let's go." Jill is not on the call today, but she also works for West Central Initiative. And she's been amazing to collaborate with on this program. Next slide, please. So we came up with the idea of actually creating these friendly characters, which are the animal friends. And this is where I was thinking again about what are some ways that we can encourage kids to actually walk or bike to school, or even with COVID, to the response of this. Right now, yes, our children are in elementary school, but middle school and high school are hybrid right now. And so if something does happen where we do have to close all of the schools down, where the kids will all be doing a hybrid, we still want them to get out and to be able to exercise, walk, ride their bikes or their scooters or their skateboards, and also to have families thinking about that health-wise, also to get out and get fresh air, be in nature. And so I came up with the idea of actually creating these animals and footprints so that the kids can have something to relate to have an experience and to follow and to walk on the footsteps. And so that's where we came up with the bear, frog, deer, and duck, which are native to our region. And then also the kangaroo and the elephants are actually the friends that have migrated here so that they can be friends together. And so one way that we can do this is with the safe routes to school, as to what Wayne was talking about, is that you might already have some safe routes that are set up. Well, we can create a walking path to encourage them to still use those walking paths and to get them excited about it. Also, if you're trying to find safe routes to school, this is where we are going to have specific barriers and barricades that can be used. And then also putting this walking path in place so that it gives the children a direction, or even the parents the right direction as to where their kids should be walking or riding their bikes. Next slide, please, Jill. The other great thing about this project, so that it can be also virtually accessible, is that we have these wonderful bicycle flag pennants that have been created with the animal characters, also with the logo. These can be printed off on paper. You can also print them off on fabric as well. And then you can do a little paper hole punch where you can actually put them on the bicycle flagpole, or you can hang these up in your windows of your home or in their bedroom, or even in classrooms or community centers to get the kids excited about it, and also the parents to be talking about it and having to talk about the dialogue of how even the duck is wearing a helmet and a face shield as they're getting ready to go to school. Or even how the kangaroo is wearing their face mask and hopping his way to school as well. Next slide, please. And so to bring all of this together and to create all of these 6 characters, we are also going to have a rainbow theme so that it's bright, colorful, and inviting, and to be talking about all individuals and actually showing how if we all come together, we can have a safe way to get to school. And also too, with COVID, we can have a safe walking path or circle that we can invite others to come to and actually give instructions to families and kids of saying, if you want to go meet your friend to go do a daily walk, you got to make sure that you stay on the kangaroo footprints, and then your friend can be on the elephant footprints, but you got to make sure that you have the duck footprint, the deer footprint, and the frog footprint in between you two. So it's just another great way to give them some direction and to actually give them activities so that they can have something to get the exercise and to be outside. There are other elements to this toolkit that we are currently working on as well, which are little play sculptures that will be implemented when we're able to do more of in-person presentations that West Central Initiative will be able to do. And these play sculptures will also have little footprints that I'm actually embedding on the tire. So then the kids can run it across chalk paint, and then they can create little footprints as well, so that you can be talking more about safe routes. And I'm also going to be creating 4 games that will be along with that toolkit when Wayne and the Safe Routes to School team goes to visit different communities and to get people engaged of all ages as well. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Naomi and Wayne. And I think, Wayne, you're not off the hook yet because I threw in a couple more slides here for you. I think if you go to the next slide.
Actually, I just want to point out on that slide that's up
Sure.
right now.
Go for it.
That's Naomi doing the welding, by the way. For those that don't know, I can't remember if that got mentioned before or not, but.
Yep.
And then that's Carl, my business partner for our bike racks. And just so that everyone knows too, like we are able to custom design different themes to be used for bike racks because we've learned from Wayne about the rules and regulations for heights, even how many need to be hooked up to the bike. So we have different designs in the works right now as well. Thank you.
Cool. So next slide, please, Jill. So Wayne, I put this one in for you.
Yeah. So so one of the things that we talked about on yesterday's call regarding Safe Routes to School and why the numbers we're seeing. Basically, the number of kids that have ridden the bus over the years, and on this chart it shows from 1969 to 2009. The number of kids that have ridden the bus has stayed relatively flat. That really hasn't changed over the years. What's changed is the number of kids who walk and bike to school versus the number of kids who are driven in a vehicle, either by their parents or grandparents or somebody else. And so you can see here, the number of kids who have in 1969, the number of kids who usually walk or bike to school, it was almost half kids back in 1969 walked or bike to school. That number has dropped to 13%. And on that kind of purple or downward sloping line, imagine that reversing, and that's the bus or the driving numbers now. So back, in 1969, it was maybe 10-15% that were driven in a car, and now it's about half that are driven in a car. So that number has basically flip-flopped over that time period. And then you can see the correlation there. The number of kids, the other line, who are overweight or obese during that time period has, there's an inverse relationship there. So now again, this isn't the only factor. There's other things that play into this number as well, but it's certainly something that contributes. So that and Safe Routes to School is one way that we can start to address that kind of scary statistic. Is there another one too, Pat?
Yeah, there's one more.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we also talked a little bit yesterday about, and want to kind of reiterate it today. We talked a little bit about, as far as Naomi's project and doing a demonstration and, how MnDOT could be a partner in that. And Yeah, so there's a demonstration implementation guide that exists. This is publicly available on MnDOT's website. If you Google MnDOT demonstration projects, it'll pop right up. And so this would be a good resource as we look into some options for demonstration projects. Both, kind of more standard sorts of things like you would see here with some plastic delineator bollards where they've made a curb extension. But then also, we may want to try to incorporate, and I think it'd be a great idea if we could, some of the concepts that Naomi just talked about and pull those in as well to kind of make it even more fun and incentivize more kids to think about walking and biking to school and get their parents on board and excited about it too.
Terrific, Wayne. And two comments that I have about this slide here. So if you go right now to Henning in Otter Tail County on the main drag, Highway 108, you'll see something similar to this. Henning has its own demonstration project happening right now with the white plastic sticks, or what MnDOT refers to as bollards. Because Highway 108 through downtown Henning is going to be reconstructed in 2024. And then, as I mentioned earlier, 59 and 108 in Pelican Rapids are going to get reconstructed in 2024 also. And so Mary, who's part of the Zoom meeting this morning and also joined us last night, mentioned last night that MnDOT District 4 is looking at the possibility of doing a demonstration project like this in Pelican Rapids in 2021. Naomi, Wayne, and I, and Mary, and Jane have been talking about the possibility of incorporating or integrating Naomi's art project into both the Henning Henning demonstration this year and the Pelican Rapids demonstration next year. So I hope we're able to pull it off, so stay tuned for that. Next slide, please. So Ryan joined us last night, but he wasn't able to join us this morning, so I'll do my best here. There's a really exciting workshop coming up in October, specifically focused on Pelican Rapids and local food. Everybody's welcome to join this workshop, whether you live in Pelican Rapids or not, because certainly we all eat. And what Pelican Rapids is looking at is how can they improve their local food system. There's a definite nexus between this and the Pelican Rapids Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan, because part of improving the local food system is also making it easier for people to bike and walk to sources of food or community gardens or things of that nature. So I think if you go to the next slide, I'm signed up for the workshop. I hope you'll sign up too. It's 2 full days, October 7th and October 8th. And you do need to, it's free, but you do need to register. So there's the registration link, bit.ly/LFLP, that's Local Foods, Local Places, Pelican Rapids. And I think Jill last night was kind enough to put this link in the chat box. So Jill, if you'd be willing to do that again, that would be great. And if you want more information, contact Jill Amundsen at WCI, and her phone number is 218-998-1614, and her email address is jill@wcif.org. So please join us for this workshop. It's going to be really exciting, whether you're coming at it from a local food angle or you're coming at it from a bike and pedestrian angle. Either way. And thank you, Jill. Jill just put it in the chat box, so you can copy that or click on it now and save the link. But join us for this workshop. It's going to be really cool. So next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about certain aspects of the bicycle and pedestrian plan. When we had a series of public input meetings back in June, we talked about trails or multi-use paths. Those are separated from the street, and we showed some examples. Part of the input that we got back in June was, well, linear trail links are nice, but what we really want are loops. So I asked our bicycle and pedestrian plan committee to think about some loops. And Deb, who is on the Zoom meeting this morning, suggested 2 loops that she already likes to bike, even though currently there is no trail or bike lanes or other infrastructure associated with these loops. So we're calling them the small loop and the big loop. They are both north of town. This is a map of the small loop. And moving clockwise, if you start at the bottom, basically where the historic monument is, then you go north on 9 and then to 430th Street, which sort of separates the cemetery from the golf course. You go east on 430, then eventually you go south on 59 or Broadway back to where you started. And that's a total of 1.2. I'm sorry, I may have said 3 miles. That's actually 3 minutes by car, according to Google Maps, but it's 1.2 miles. So I have some images of visual points of interest along the way. So thank you, Jill. So the starting point is the historic monument. This, if you haven't seen this in person yet, check it out. This commemorates the founding in the 19th century of what was then called Pelican Rapids Village. So it's a pretty cool monument. That's the starting point. And then if you go to the next slide, when you go up 9, you eventually reach the Birchwood Golf Course. And then if you go to the next slide, so this is what we're calling the big loop. And this one is a total of 7.4 miles. And again, going clockwise, you would start basically at the historic monument, go north on 9. This time you're going all the way to 450th and then going east. So you're completely surrounding Prairie Lake. And then when you reach 59, again, you go south on 59 back to where you started. So I've got a couple images along that route. So if you go to the next slide, this is 450th as you bike east. This is sort of the farming part of 450th. As you go further east, you reach sort of the lake homes on the north side of Prairie Lake. And then next slide. When you go south on 59, you will reach the Prairie Lake public boat access that's operated by the Minnesota DNR. Now, one note about this boat access is that a couple months ago, MnDOT District 4 posed the question to the Pelican Rapids City Council, since we're reconstructing 59 within city limits in 2024, and since the concept plan that the city created in conjunction with Partnership for Health and others back in 2019 indicates a trail on the west side of 59 from the north edge of town to the boat access. Do you, City Council, do you want us, District 4, to build this segment in 2024? The city would have to pay for it, but we're willing to construct it if you want it. And the City Council deliberated on this over the course of 2 meetings and decided to decline the offer for 2 reasons. Number 1 was cost, and number 2 was there were the council received input from some entities, including the Lake Association and also the DNR themselves, recommending that segment not be built at this time. The reason being, the only officially approved or officially allowed activity at the boat access is launching boats and retrieving boats. There are people that engage in other activities there, even though they're not supposed to, like swimming and fishing. And the council thought, and I think both the Lake Association and the DNR thought, that if you have a trail that just goes from the north edge of town to the boat access and then stops there, doesn't go anywhere else, that's too much of an invitation for swimming and fishing and other types of activities that technically aren't supposed to be happening at the boat launch. However, even at the same meeting when the city council said, let's not build that link, they also acknowledged that someday they may want to build that link as part of a larger loop. So the door is still open to maybe do the link as part of a larger loop sometime in the future. And Deb, once again, you're on the call. You chimed in a little bit last night. Do you want to add anything this morning?
Good morning, Patrick. Just make a similar comment to what I made last night is that these are nice loops, and they're loops that just exist versus trying to create something, but none of them have any real safety features built into them. And so I would not recommend at this time, maybe the short loop, but certainly not the long loop being something that you would do with your kids. It's Highway 59. The section that goes east-west doesn't have a shoulder. It's not a safe route specifically for kids. It's probably not that safe a route for adults either, but I bike all kinds of places that aren't necessarily all that safe, and that's a choice that I make, but I would not be recommending it to others unless they feel very confident in their riding or walking.
Terrific. Thanks, Deb. So speaking of infrastructure, we've got 2 poll questions now related to those loops, and Jill will distribute the polls.
All right, there we go. Getting ready to launch. So the first question, which of the 2 loops north of town would you prefer to have a trail? And that's the big loop, the small loop. I like both equally. I'm not interested in either. Those are your choices. Please select one. And then the second question, I would bike or walk along the 2 loops if, and the options are, there was a separated paved trail for people on foot or bike. There was a combination of roads, shoulder, and separated trail. There was signage that indicated the loop, but not a separate trail. Or lastly, there were public events to encourage use of the trail. And again, this one is a one option, or choose one, and you do have to answer both questions to submit. So I'll pause for about another 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds for folks to have a last chance to respond. All right, I'm gonna close the poll, Patrick.
Super.
All right. Oh, yeah. See, it was good. I hesitated. One more came in. That's great.
All right.
And I will share results. Here we go. So in this one, I like both equally. Took the day, which I think is similar to last night as well, actually. And then for the conditions you would bike, the preference was for a separate paved trail. And second was a combination. So that's great. And one person did like the idea or thought that events to encourage use would help. Or I shouldn't say help, but the question was, what would you like? And they said that. So.
Super. Thank you,
All right.
everybody. So next slide.
Yes, hang on a second. There we go.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. So at the beginning of the presentation, I showed you our first and unfortunately only in-person group meeting for the Pelican Rapids Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan Committee. At that meeting back in February, I had them draw on maps or aerial photos of Pelican Rapids. Then the nice people at Apex digitized that for me. This is that map. I'm not going to go through this thing in detail right now, but I just wanted to include this in the presentation in case anybody had any comments, ideas, suggestions, questions, whatever. We can certainly refer to this map. Okay, next slide. So when Wayne talked about depending on how you count, 5, 6, or 7 E's for safe routes to school, one of those E's is equity. And equity is certainly something that we're interested in this bicycle and pedestrian plan also. And when we think about the bicycle and pedestrian plan, what I think about is there are certain groups in our population, and I'm not just talking about Pelican Rapids, I'm talking nationally. There are certain groups within the population that typically have more face more challenges being able to bike or walk safely in their neighborhoods. And certainly immigrants are among those groups, and communities of color are among those groups. And so unfortunately, the 2010 census data is the most recent census data we have. The 2020 census data will not be available until next summer. But based on the 2010 census data, Apex made me these two maps. And on the left, the red area is the highest concentration of Somali residents of Pelican Rapids. And on the right is the highest concentration of Latinx residents in Pelican Rapids. And the reason that I asked Apex to make these two maps is I was interested in whether how well or not these neighborhoods are served with bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. So if we go to the next slide, the area that corresponds to the highest concentration of Somali residents happens to be a townhome development that is simply called the Townhomes of Pelican Rapids. This is about 3 blocks east of Highway 59. So next slide, please. And so what I did a couple weeks ago, it was a nice day, and I walked both of these neighborhoods and took photos to sort of inventory how poorly or well these neighborhoods are situated with sidewalks. And in the case of the Somali neighborhood, this is where the sidewalk ends. This is 1 block east of 59, and you've got 2.5 more blocks to go to get to the townhomes. And this is where the sidewalk ends mid-block, and beyond this, there are no townhomes. This is there are no sidewalks. This is on 3rd, which is sort of runs along the south edge of the townhome development from 59. The reason why I looked at this street and also 5th to the north is because I know that a lot of members of the Somali community work at the turkey processing plant, and certainly some of them have cars, but some of them don't. And whether they have a car or not, probably the way they get to the turkey plant is by either 3rd along the south side of the development or 5th along the north side of the development. So I was interested in between where they live and 59, how well situated are they with sidewalks? So if you go to the next slide, this is 5th. This is on the north side of the development. This is 1 block east of 59. And again, this is the point at which the sidewalk ends. The building in the center of the photo there is the Spanish-speaking Apostolic Church. The road off to the left is going east towards the townhome development. And not only are there no sidewalks at that point, but the road itself is gravel. The road off to the right is going south, and that is paved. But again, there are no sidewalks on that street either. So basically, on the street that runs along the north side of the townhome development, there is sidewalk for the first block, but then after the first block, the sidewalk ends. And I don't have any photos in this presentation of the Spanish-speaking neighborhood west of 59, but it's a very similar situation. There are no sidewalks in that neighborhood either to speak of. So next slide, please. So we're getting near the end of the presentation here, although not necessarily the end of the meeting because we have until 11:30. We do need to end though promptly at 11:30. So I want to wrap up the presentation with some thoughts about speed limits. So up until last year's Minnesota State Legislative session, Minnesota was notoriously difficult, even compared with other states, for cities in Minnesota to be able to lower the speed limit on their local streets. Before last year, cities had to jump through a lot of bureaucratic hoops if they wanted to lower their speed limits from 30, which is considered the default speed limit statewide on all local streets down to 25. What the legislature did last year was they made it a lot easier. And so Minneapolis and St. Paul have already lowered their speed limits on local streets from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. And Pelican Rapids could do the same. The mayor happened to be part of our meeting last night, and he seemed to have some interest in potentially doing that. And so if you go to the next slide, Jill emailed me this slide last night, so I included it here. Obviously, lowering the speed limit enhances safety. This is a graphic explaining one statistic why. If God forbid you're hit by a car, obviously the slower the car is going, the greater your chance of survival. So studies show that a pedestrian hit by a car going at 20 miles per hour has a 90% chance of surviving. If they're hit by a car at 30 miles an hour, they have a 50% chance of surviving. And if they're hit by a car at 40 miles per hour, they have only a 10% chance of surviving. So with that, I think if you go to the next slide, we do have a poll question for you related to speed limits. So Jill will provide that poll question.
Here it comes. Do you think traffic speed on city streets is a concern for people to feel safe walking and biking? Options are yes, no, not sure, don't know.
And in this case, when we say city, we mean specifically Pelican Rapids.
Oh, all right. I think we've got everybody. I'm closing the poll. So 5 yeses, 1 no, and 1 not sure.
Could you show us the poll?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was so excited. I just read it off. There you go.
Sure.
Here. Yeah, so 5 for yes, a no, and a not sure. So.
All right, very good.
And I said this yesterday, but I don't think I've said this yet today. Just with the poll questions too, they're really just to help kind of get a temperature for folks, how folks are responding on the call. So these are not, what's the right word for that? Like there's no contract, no binding response to this.
Right. Good point. So, and I think we got a comment in the chat box related to speed. Let's take a look at that. So Julie commented in the chat box, speed on Highway 59 and 108 are considered different than the majority of our city streets. That's correct. And actually, if you go back 2 slides, Jill.
Oops.
There you go. Some of you might even recognize where this is. I was looking for a speed limit sign to take a photo of. I ended up taking a photo along 108. This is 108 facing east of 59. So obviously the criteria and the standards, the thresholds for speed limits on 59 and 108 in Pelican Rapids are going to be different than, you know, other local residential streets. So it's not, when we talk about lowering the speed limit, it's not a one size fits all. And probably, I'll admit, I probably should have used a different photo. I just wanted a photo of a 30 mile an hour speed limit sign, but I probably should have found one in Pelican Rapids other than 59 or 108, because obviously we're going to, we and MnDOT and the state and the city council are going to view those 59 and 108 differently than local city streets. But I just wanted a photo of a speed limit sign. So.
And I'll just add that, so again, just to be explicit, the change in statute is only for locally controlled roads, not county or city, or I'm sorry, county or state roads, so state highways. So 59 would not change. Again, a city held road that crosses 59 could have a reduced speed limit if the community was wanting to do that. So we're talking about more residential, but again, the city-owned roads. I think what's tricky for all folks, especially anyone who's not active in transportation work, you don't know who owns what road. You just call Don and complain because something's weird on the road, and whether it's something that the city of Pelican Rapids has jurisdiction on, or if it's the county, that's always the fun. But so that's one piece, is it's only the locally held roads. The other piece I'd say is there is an awareness that this is only one tool in speed reduction or speed management, and the whole idea that design matters, doing other traffic calming measures matter, and not simply we all know the speed limit signs only have so much ability. We all know, like, you can do speed traps, but they only have the impact when that's happening, and then that you aren't changing long-term driver behavior. So it's one tool, but the idea of, again, giving back some control to local communities, I think was the value that was held closest in making this shift. So it opens the door. Minneapolis and St. Paul get used as the example because they've started. I also know that example doesn't always hold up as we talk about work around the state. New Ulm's talking about doing this. It's there for a community to decide what they want to do. So.
Super. Thanks, Jill. I think if you go forward one more. Yeah. So next steps. We are going to have another meeting of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan Committee sometime in October. That will be by Zoom, obviously because of COVID. I am planning to have one final round of public input meetings like this, again on Zoom, in the month of November. Those obviously have not been scheduled yet. And then I've already talked to the mayor about number 3 here. I will be presenting the plan to the city council at normally the city council meets twice a month. In the month of December, they're only meeting once. But I already told the mayor last night that I would like to present the plan to the city council at their one meeting in December. And I recognize that when I present the plan to the council may themselves have some suggestions or revisions or edits that they would like me to make to the document. And so my plan is to submit a PDF of the plan to the city in January. And then next slide. So that's the end of the presentation here. Thank you, Blue Cross. And Partnership for Health, of course, is part of the statewide health improvement partnership funded by the Minnesota Department of Health. So that's the end of the presentation, although not necessarily the end of the meeting. We've got about probably 15 minutes. If anybody has any ideas, questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, anything that anybody wants to talk about, even not necessarily even in relation to my presentation, but just anything in relation to the bicycle and pedestrian plan. I'll give you another 15 seconds here. You could also somebody put something in the chat box here. You're welcome to either unmute and speak up or put something in the chat box. All right, Julie, thank you for the compliment. Julie says in the chat box, Naomi's addition to this project is going to put it over the top in awesomeness. That's great.
Thank you, Jill.
Yeah.
Julie, thank you, Julie. Yes. And thank you too, Jill. Yes.
If we'll keep it open here for a few more seconds here. If anybody wants to either unmute and declare or ask anything, or if you want to put another comment in the chat box, either way. Hi, Karen.
I just wanted to say hello.
Hey there. Thanks for joining us.
I didn't get to finish it last night, so I still missed part of Naomi, so I'll catch up with Patrick on that.
Super, super. And we also, by the way, we also have Anna Olson with us from Minnesota Department of Health, and also from Wright County. So Anna, thank you for joining us.
Hi. Sorry. I've been having a lot of back issues working from home, so I was actually laying on the floor, I'll be honest, trying to start. I was listening the whole time.
Well, but
my
you were,
God.
you were able to hear us at least.
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. We should have been playing some music for you then. That
I,
would
then
have
I
been
might
good.
have fallen asleep. I don't want that.
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha. Gotcha. So Anna's actually, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of your motivation for joining us was you're interested in potentially applying some of this to Wright County, right? Is that,
Yes.
yeah, super. So thank you. Awesome. And we have Julie from the Department of Economic Development, right? So Julie, thank you for joining us too.
Thank you. It's very interesting, and I enjoy getting caught up on this process.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks. Well,
One
I'm
thing
not
that I did,
sure. Go ahead, Naomi.
since Julie's on too, and others as well from different counties, the Lake Region Arts Council serves the 9 regions as well within West Central Minnesota. And they have actually had a study done to see what the economic impact has been within these 9 counties. And so if you actually wanted to have some more data on how the arts actually has an economic impact within your county, you could contact Maxine Adams at the Lake Region Arts Council, and they could actually share that data with you. It's a great resource, just even when you're presenting to city councils or other organizations that you want to collaborate with as well.
Great. Thank you.
Yep. Super. All
All
right.
right. I'm going to turn off recording and then let
Okay.
swearing begin. All right. Thanks, everybody.